So let's just look at the page, which I hope is helpful in understanding the Maimer. Right-hand column, extreme right. Chazal say about Adam Rishon. So there's three going down the column, talking about what happened as a result of the Chet. So he was the blood of the world, the Domeh Shel Olam. He was the pure Chal of the world, and he was the light, the flame of the world. All the sources were explained when we learned the Maimon. We're just getting to the conclusion. So he's the blood of the world. Now we're going to go across. Now we're going to go horizontal. So there's a line which separates, you can see, a vertical line, because first we explain the three mitzvahs of Nida, Chal, and Adlokas Haner, and how they rectify the Chet Eitzadas. And then the Maimon said that in more detail, these three components of Nida, Chal, and Adlokas Haner exist in the mitzvah of Chal itself as well. So let's first look at Nida, Chal, and Adlokas Haner. What is Nida? Nida, so looking at the light color blue, tells us immediately that it's the beginning of the Avodah. It deals with Nefesh. What is Nefesh? There are three levels of the Neshama invested in the Guf. Consciously, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama. Nefesh is the seat of behavior, Ruach, emotion, basically. And Neshama, Seichel. So Nida addresses the level of Nefesh. What's Nida? Nida is Avodas HaBirurim. It represents the refinement of the world, the rejection of the waste. That's what happens in Nida. It's Yitzias Mitzrayim, where they left Mitzrayim behind. B'damai chayi, as the pasuk says, you went out, by your blood you will live. That's referring to the blood of Nida, the refinement of the blood. That's what Nida is. And what's that in Avodah, rejecting Ra, of course, is Sur Mira. The pasuk says Sur Mira, I say Tov, and finally seek peace, and that is explained to mean Torah. Torah makes peace, as we will learn later in the Maimer. So that's the Avodah of Nida. The Avodah of Nida affects the Avodah of Nefesh, and it elevates the world on the level of Sur Mira. The first step in the regular Avodah is stop sinning. Then we can start talking about doing mitzvahs. Although there's also the Avodah first starting with Asay Tov, but overall it's Sur Mira, as the pasuk itself says. Sur Mira, then Asay Tov. Then comes Chala. What's the connection to what's the meaning of Chala? So he was called the pure Chal of the world. That's how the Gemara, the Medrash, it's three sources there. Yerushalmi, Medrash Rabbi, and Tanchuma. All say the same thing, basically. So he was the Chalat, the pure Chal of the world. So where does this translate? Okay, I didn't explain how he's the blood of the world. He's the blood of the world because it's like, if you recall, anybody remembers? What's the connection? Pasha Begashmius that would explain why Adam is the blood of the world. Anybody remembers?
Blood creates a nefesh. Oidem. Should be menu habasar.
What's it got to do with Adam Rishon? Asking Adam Rishon, what's the connection between Adam Rishon and blood? And Domeh Shel Olam. Okay, so I'll remind you. Because he davened for rain. When he came and he davened, that's when rain happened. So rain, what does the rain do? Like blood. It saturates the earth and gives it life. Like the blood in the body. Now you remember? Yeah. So that's why he's Domeh Shel Olam. So what is that? We just explained that's the thing of Avodas HaBirurim. Specifically Sur Mira. What's the connection to him being the Chal of the world? That's fairly obvious. What's the Chal of the world? Because he's made of the earth and the water, like Challah, like dough. Now, what's the connection to Challah Tahira? Because Tahira Tahira is really the key that associates this with Ruach. Ruach Tahara. So the question that was asked yesterday by Ephraim, like, what's the connection exactly to the level of Ruach? Nefesh we understand. Nefesh is the animating level of the basic animating level of the person. The blood resides ki nefesh habosa bedamhi. But what's the connection to Ruach? So we explained yesterday, and here's more detail, because the Maimon stresses that he was taken not just from earth, but off a meshubach, from the choice earth of the world. And then he added later, not just from the place where the future Mizbech would be in the Beis HaMikdash, but the Beis HaMikdash Shomayla, that's Amish Ruchni, is Tahara. That seems to be the association with purity. He's taken from the pure earth, so pure that it's spiritual. So that corresponds to what? The level of Ruach. Here, the Avodah here is not the rejection of evil, but Asay Tov. Chala. We are going to eat this bread. This bread is refined. This is for human consumption. So this corresponds to the higher level of the nefesh, Ruach Asay Tov. We said before that the level of Ruach is where the emotions are. So what this means is that the level of nefesh is the person took care of his behavior. So he took care of his behavior, so now he's at a level we can have love of God and awe of God. This is all positive. I say tov. This is kavana. That's maisa nefesh is maisa, and this is kavana. So kavana is the inyan of I say tov, and that is tahara, pure. We're not engaging the world here. This is the world of purity. Nefesh engages the world. It goes without saying that there can be corrupted emotions as well. But the corruption of the emotions is translated primarily in action. That's not the subject here. We're just pointing this out. Now I added something else here. The Maimon said that Nefesh is Yitzias Mitzrayim. So what is Ruach? The third line there in the middle column, Rosh Tevis, Mem Tov. You see it there? Matan Torah. Now, L'chayra Matan Torah isn't that not the next column, the next row? That's not Neshama? I'm asking you a question. The Maimon said that this is the Matan Torah. Cholov, as the blood is now transformed into the milk. But L'chayra, that's the union of Neshama, is Bakish Sholem is Torah. Answer my question. L'chayra, but he says in the Maimon, when he talks about Matan Torah, he doesn't so much stress the giving of Torah, but the Posca Zumasa. That's what he stresses, that when the Torah was given, their impurity was no longer, they were cleansed of Zuma, means impurity. That's the emphasis that he's stressing, that aspect of Matan Torah. That's the aspect of Matan Torah that he's stressing now, in contrast to Yitzias Mitzrayim. Yitzias Mitzrayim was still the avodah of Yitzias Mitzrayim is get out of Mitzrayim, reject evil. The next stage then is Matan Torah, stressing Asay Tov, the evil has already been cleansed. That's the Tahara again. Poskas and Mosan again is the association of Tahara, which is the Chala Tahira of the world, which is the level of Ruach. Yeah. That's the emphasis here. Not the Limud Torah, but the Paskas and Mosan aspect of Matan Torah. That's the milk. Then comes Neder Shel Olam. No, why is he called the flame of the world? It's called Nida because the water, the rain. Chala because he's made of flour. He's made of earth and water, like flour, like a dough is made. And why is he Neder Shel Olam Pashat? Neir Hashem Nishmas Adam. It's referring to everybody, but the pasuk mentions Adam explicitly as the primal man. That the flame of God is the soul of man. So the inyan of Ner, he's also called the flame of the world. And that's the level, the Pasuk actually identifies Nishmas Adam, the level of Neshama. So what's the tikkun for that? All of these were corrupted through the h'tשכ. So what's the tikkun of that? Is Hadlakas HaNer, is Shabbos candles. Ner Hashem, yeah, put it there. Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, that corresponds to Neshama. And Neshama, as we said, is the place where Seichel primarily resides. So what's that? That's the end of Torah. Bakashalom, as the mind will explain, the end of peace, why that's associated dafka with Torah. In summary, the three mitzvahs that Chava is given, didn't put this on the paper, this is obvious, the mind states it, because Chava was the one that brought about the kilkul on all three levels of Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama. Therefore, she's given these mitzvahs of Nida, Chala, and Adlakas HaNer to rectify these levels of the neshama within humanity, Protis, Klal Yisrael thereafter. Clear? She represents Klal Yisrael altogether, but in particular, her, that represents the Yid as he is Mesaken, all these levels of Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama. We're clear? Then he said, so that's the three levels as they correspond to the three mitzvahs. But in detail, they are present in Chala itself. That's the final column on the left-hand side of the page. And it all matches up. It's on the same horizontal lines as Nida, Chala, Adlakas HaNer, because the point is that this is present also in the mitzvah of Chala. Let's look at it. So the first thing is, and here we're answering the questions, or at least two questions, at least one question that he asked them in the beginning of the Maimer. The first thing is Chala is what? It's made of offer of Mayim. What's offer of Mayim? Underneath that, Yichud Zun, which is what? Which is what? Which is Zon, which is Malchus. Offer Mayim. Offer is Malchus and Mayim is Zon. Offer is the Mother Earth and Mayim is the male. So this yichud, which happens in Atzilus, arrow, produces biyah, which is the body of Adam Rishon. So that's what when the pasuk says, "V'haya ba'akhlachem ba'aretz," when you will eat, that's the first inyan. This is now the guf and the nourishment of the guf that happens through the refinement of the food. Then what's the next level? So basically it's the creation of the guf. Then in detail, she then separates in the next stage in challah. First you mix it, then you sakba, then you separate that piece of dough. That is what the avodah of bittul hayesh. That's the avodah of refining and surrendering the yesh, which is guf, which is biyah. That's the next stage of tarim truma l'Hashem. You shall give an offering to Hashem. What is that? That's the first birur. That's the birur of bittul hayesh. One star. What does the star say? That's the avodah of lechem in the aretz. That's our refinement of the world. Yichud Tato, which is our level is avodah, the lower unity. Bittul hayesh starts with yesh, and we're surrendering the yesh. Right? This is all. I'm not explaining. We're just reviewing. Purposes of reviewing. Yeah. Then comes the kohen's eating it. This. I didn't put this on the page, but this is what challah shares in common with all korbanos that the Baalim Mischaprim only after the Kohen eats, which is even a higher avodah than the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach is, I could have put it on the page, the Mizbeach is the Hagbah. The Mizbeach, the korban offered on Mizbeach, that's Hagbah. That's Bittul hayesh, that's Yichud Tato, that's the person bringing his Nefesh Abamis. That's the avodah of Milamata Lamayla. Then the Kohen eating represents the Eibush, the Adam Elyon. That's Yichud Yilah. What's that? That's revelation from above to below. It's the opposite. Amshachas Avo Abba V'Imo, could be a Yud after the Yud there. And more than that, it's Hamshach of Atik, Atik Kadisha, and in brackets I added what levels of that. It's Chachma Bina and Pnimis HaKeser, which is higher than creation. Creation is produced by Zun, which are the 6 Midas and Malchus. But Chachma and Bina, and certainly Atik, is beyond creation altogether. There are 6 days to creation because that's the Yichud of Zun. But Chachma and Bina, that's higher. Bachal, it's Torah. What's Torah? It's Eibush Seichel. So that's the union of Baki Shalom Torah, that's the level of Neshama, it all matches up. The Hamshach of Chacham and Bina, and even more than that, Pnimius HaKeser. The Prati is Chacham and Bina is Torah, and Pnimius HaKeser is Mitzvahs, that's the Ratzon Elyon, which is higher than Torah. Clear? So that is the 3 levels that exist within Chala, and that's in the 2 stars. That's Tacham and Hashamayim, that's the bitter that comes as a result of our Avodah, that's God's response, that's the heavenly bread. This week's parsha talks about the manna, lachem and hashamayim, yichud ilah, bittul b'metzias, and as we learned in the Mayim ben Avodah, very important point he said there, if you recall, that's not enough, even though our reality is bittul ayesh, but we have to at least in seichel understand yichud ilah, otherwise we're going to end up where we shouldn't end up. Well, repeating that whole, we devoted almost the whole shir to that. That even though we're holding by Bittul Ayesh, we have to understand the emes of Shema Yisrael. Even have to close our eyes saying it. So true, but you have to entertain it, because if we're not connected to something higher, then what? Grobe Jung. There's no shame. There's no embarrassment. There's no sense of something higher. So that's critical. So there has to be the Avodah also of Yichud Ilah. That's Achilas HaKoyen, which the Yud should be after the Chaf there. Achilas HaKoyen. Achilas HaKoyen. Which is Yichud Ilah, and that's also part of our Avodah. Clear? That's a summary. Now let's continue in the Maimer. We didn't put all the details on, but just keep it as a reference. Things. Hopefully it's helpful for you. Okay, let's go further. So where are we up to in the Maimer? Ois Daled. What, yes or not? This is a summary of the second paragraph of his Gimel. And what we learned before. No, I don't think we finished this. Did we?
No, we didn't.
We didn't. Okay, so let's do it inside.
You're being in a base.
Okay, so let's go through it then quickly. So now we'll understand it clearer, having right. So Chala also had these 3 things. Just like a woman mixes her dough with water, the flour with water, and then she lifts her challah. So too the Eibusha did with man. First, this mist arose from the ground and watered the garden, and then Hashem formed him earth from the ground. So that's, look at the page, you can see it. That's with respect to the creation of his body. The first, he just created a body without being infused with the soul. You saw me when I was just a goylam, a clump of earth and water, of clay. And then Hashem breathed into him a living soul, and he became a nefesh chaya, living soul. Now that's also connected to challah. Because it spells the word challah, ches, lamed, hey, backwards. So that's in general. We have the 3 inyonim of what? 3 components to challah, which correspond to nida, challah, and lakas, and that is You break it down further, it's three stages. So first, the mixing of the flour and water. She mixes her dough with water. The offer of mayim. So what's the parallel? The parallel is the yichud of the supernal earth and water, which is yichud zun, which is the yichud of the Eibish's 6 midas and malchus. As we explained yesterday, when God created the world, He said, for 6 days let there be light and so on. This word is malchus. The actual creation is chesed, the first day, gvura the second day, and so on. That's yichud zun. So days ended the gufa shalom. That created the physical world. In general, as we explained yesterday, the person is a microcosm of the world. It's all reflected and expressed in the guf of Admo in each one of us. So that's the yichud of what? The way it is in Atzilus, and it produces biyah, produces the guf. Now the next stage is, so this is all part of stage 1. So we explained elsewhere that as I mentioned, we've come across that there's 4 opinions. They're all complementary. Where does the earth come from? It comes from all over the world. It comes from under the Beis HaMikdash, Gashmi, the Mizbeach, and it comes from under the Beis HaMikdash Ruchni. So, explained also from the Zohar that where does he come from? Beis HaMikdash, he wasn't just created from the earthly Beis HaMikdash, Beis HaMikdash Elyon, from the supernal Beis HaMikdash. So, therefore, in the Yichud of Ramayim, Yichud Zon Datzilus. So, we're talking here about what kind of earth here? He's just stressing here, this is the most supernal earth. This is where he makes the point, that this is the Yichud of Atzilus, which produces the Yichud of Zun. He's partially describing what happened in creation. This produces biyah. So that's number 1. So number 1 is what? The creation of Adam Adish's guf. That's the first thing. So then there's a lifting of the challah, showing in halom, biyalis, bitlet. So now there's a creation. But now the creation needs work, because the creation walks around with a sense of independence. There's got to be the bitl, that's avodah, aliyas hakelim. We have to elevate the kelim. That's the avodah of avodah seberurim. That's the lechem in the aretz, right? That's the second thing. And then Hashem breathed in Tim Nishmas Chaim, Sheneshama Zun Nimshachas B'chinas Hava V'atika Kadisha V'ak. Now this is the Gilim Milamayla, that's the Neshama. V'amshach Zu Bo L'achri Hagbos HaChala. This only comes after the Avodah Bitla Yesh. Lifting the challah, that's our avodah, to elevate the vessels, elevate the world, elevate the body. Through our avodah of elevating the vessels, that's us. This draws down in other worldly revelations. We said before that creation involves the 6 midas. But now we're getting avo, we're getting chachma and binah, and even higher the chachma and binah, which is Bachlal Torah. We're getting Atika Kadisha, the Pnimius Rotzen Elyon, which is mitzvahs, the Rotzen Elyon. That's what God grants us. So this is what we see physically, looking at the pasuk, answering the questions we asked at the beginning of the Maimer, in the literal performance of the mitzvah of Challah. Halef number 1, the pasuk begins with Ba'akhlachem melicham Haaretz. And it'll be when you eat from the bread of the earth. And he asked the question, why does he mention the Aretz? Said before already, this mitzvah only happens when you go into Yisrael. The answer now is already beginning the answer, because we're saying this is the whole avodah of Yichud Tatah Lechem in the Aretz. We're elevating. What we're doing is we're elevating the world. Which level of the world? That which can be elevated. These are the permissible things that lend themselves to be elevated. That's the avodah. We're not supposed to sin. And not the impure klippus. Mistam at the end will say, what happens if we do it? That's the avodah of tshuva. But this is the regular avodah. Sur miran, asay toiv, and bakishon, but atfeyo, then Torah. She'ikra in sur miran, the ikra avodah here in the first stage is sur miran. You see with a child, the Iker Avodah in the beginning is discipline. It's Sumira. It's don't touch the knife, and don't do this, and don't do that. That's how it starts. Habeis is Torim Mitrum Al Hashem, and then comes, the pasuk continues. You shall lift up a Trumat Hashem. That's Aromas Challah. That's bringing the giving of the Challah. Shinyan Asei Tov. That is now the Avodah of developing the world in the positive way. Asei Tov, right? And then Vagimbul Uamshochem Belamayda Lamata. That's Hashem's response. Which happens after we have done our job in elevating the world, and that's represented by the the kohen eating it, and that's al derech, that corresponds to the third stage of the pasuk. The godliness we draw down through learning Torah. Just on a simple level, when you learn Torah, you're not engaging the world. You're saying God's words, and God's words elevate the world. Whereas Surmeida and Asei Toy, that's our Avodah. And that's Bakei Sholem. The Bible will explain why it's called peace, because it's through the third stage that the ultimate fusion, peace means fusion, between heaven and earth happens in the deepest way. That's the outline. Now we're going to get more details to continue. Yeah, we clear? Generally? We're good. Hinom Razal. I didn't know it myself yet, so we'll learn together. So the Mishnah says in Pirkei Yovos, in Imin Kemach Ein Torah. So you have, simply, if there's no bread, there's no Torah. If you're starving, you can't learn. You have to have bread. It also goes to say, Imin Torah in Kemach. If there's no Torah, then there's no bread, which means there's no meaning to it, at least on one level. For it to be meaningful, it's going to be used for a higher purpose. It also means even more literally, the schus of Torah, in the schus of the ones learning Torah, so the ones who support them are successful in their parnasa, Yisach and Zvulun. At any rate. But now we explain like this. What does it mean in Kemach? Aside from the literal, if you don't have bread, if you're starving, you can't learn, the deeper meaning of the Mishnah is that if your Torah is not coming as a result of having engaged the world, Kemach, the whole avodah of Challah we're saying now, then it's in a vacuum. You're missing what Torah is all about. Torah should not be separated from the world, ivory tower, and not as a result of the avodas haberurim. It's got to be Kemach and then Torah. The whole point is to make this world a home for Hashem. The study of Torah should not negate engagement in matters of the world, Kemach, represented by the flour, the bread. Okay, Rabbi Shmuel says in the Gemara in Brachos, he asks, the Torah, it says, and we say in the second parsha of the Shema, you shall gather your grain. Do you have to be told that? Of course, a person. The pasuk says, if you listen to my commandments, so the rain will come at its right time, and you'll have a bountiful harvest. And then it goes on to say, and you'll gather your grain. You have to be told to gather the grain? Of course you will. So he answers, the fish in Nemar, a person might think, we shouldn't be doing that. In fact, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is the one that argues with Rabbi Shimon. But Rabbi Shmuel says, because the pasuk says that the Sefer Torah should not depart from your mouth, I might think, as he goes into the Yochel Dvarim Kiksavon, I might think we should understand the matter literally as it's written, that a person must be always learning Torah and not engaged in making a living. Talmud Loima, therefore the pasuk has to say, V'esafta degonech, you shall gather your grain. Hanig ben minig derech eretz. You should conduct yourself in the way of the world, learn Torah, but not, it doesn't mean every moment literally. He explains what it means there. It has to be articulated and set aside times for studying Torah. Now, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai argued, and he said, no. And he says, as the Maharsha explains, he says that you will gather your grain is not a blessing. Because if you will do like a B'Shim Yochai, where a person devotes himself exclusively to Torah, others will gather your grain. He says this whole parasha is talking about when we're not serving Hashem in the highest level. Because if we are, others will do so for us. So the Gemara says people tried B'Shim Yochai, they weren't successful. That's not the avodah. That's going to be when Mashiach comes. But now the avodah has to be to engage the world. Many did like Rabbi Shimon Yochai, they were not successful, but many did like Rabbi Shmuel, who says, and that's the avodah now in Zman HaGolus, that has to be Imein Kemach in Torah. Our avodah now is not to transcend, but to engage. V'olse b'yodan, they were successful. However, Hisaskas ben Yon Olam Kemach, but engaging in the world taka, that's the avodah. The avodah is, you've got to be involved with the dough, with the flour, the bread, but still, for that to be successful, first a person has to daven. What's the simple definition of davening, of tefillah? The mitzvah tefillah is, you have a need, turn to God. Of asking his requests. There are many levels to davening. That's the most rudimentary level of davening, is turn to God for your needs. Which is why min ha-Torah, you only daven as per need. If you don't have a need, you don't have to daven. Then the Chachamim established 3 times a day, etc. What's he saying in general? Before you go out to the world, there's got to be simply knowing that God is the provider. So before he goes out to the world, he davens, he connects, and thereby he affects elevating all his worldly engagements. Just like the elevation is affected by taking the dough and lifting it from the dough and giving it to the kohen. And then that elicits the Hashem's response from above to below, and you limit that Torah through Torah study, which will be explained now in the next section. Yeah, we can go a little bit further. The matter is as follows. Din Yedua Shachilik ben Tefillah Torah. What's the difference between tefillah, davening and learning? Tefillah hi Allah melamata lamayla. Tefillah, who composed tefillah? We composed it. It's our words. Tefillah is in place of korbanos. What's the korban? Placed on the altar and it's offered up. What's placed on the altar? Nefesh Bahamis. That's us. It's all Elo, and the Nefesh Bahamis is sustained. The body is sustained by the bread. So it's all about elevating from below to above. The Torah, it's God's words. God's wisdom. That's a relation from above to below. The whole ikir in atfilu, who wants davening, the main thing of davening is what? The main thing of davening is the excitement, and the islavos means being inflamed, being on fire. The nefesh being on fire, lales el Hashem, like a flame, seeks to ascend and tear itself away from the wick. Ludovka boy, and to cleave, to attach oneself to him. Now that's got to be with the intent to take that connection and then bring it into the world. But the davening itself is a desire for attachment. And that's the whole meditation that he's thinking about in davening. It's all about thinking about and contemplating the reality, the truth of a likus, and his desire to connect to the Eibishter. He should have a desire and a longing to be connected. Okay, let's continue. That means to say, Bez Hashem, tomorrow.